The waters of Lake Superior are a vast and eerie expanse, capable of turning from placid to violent in the blink of an eye. Locals along the Great Lakes have whispered stories of ships swallowed whole by storms and the echoes of forgotten sailors calling through the fog. But among all the legends and lost vessels, none looms larger or more tragically than the Edmund Fitzgerald. And for Sam Holden, a young maritime historian from Duluth, Minnesota, the ship was more than a case study. It was an obsession. Sam had grown up on stories of the Great Lakes. His grandfather, Ray Holden, had been a deckhand on various freighters for most of his life, and every Thanksgiving, he would tell the tale of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Sam never tired of hearing it. The Fitzgerald had been a massive freighter, over 700 feet long, known as the Titanic of the Great Lakes. It sank on November 10, 1975, taking all 29 crew members with it. No distress signal had been sent. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, swallowed by a furious November gale. Now 31 and teaching Great Lakes maritime history at a local college, Sam felt an urge to finally confront the myth. He wanted to write the definitive book about the Edmund Fitzgerald, not just about its loss, but about the people on board, the theories behind its sinking, and the ghost stories that clung to its legend like algae on a forgotten hull. He started by interviewing surviving relatives of the crew, digging into archived shipping logs, Coast Guard reports, and meteorological data from that fateful night. But the deeper he dove, the stranger the waters became. During a visit to a museum in Sault Ste. Marie, he met a woman named Margaret Cole, who claimed her father had been a radio operator stationed near Whitefish Point in 1975. He was one of the last people to receive a message from the Fitzgerald. Margaret handed him an envelope. "My father died in 1993. He never wanted this to be seen. But I think someone needs to know." Inside was a faded page from a radio logbook. The time read 7:08 p.m., just minutes before the ship disappeared. The message read, "We're holding our own. The water has a voice tonight. I think it's calling names." Sam stared at the note for what felt like an eternity. That line wasn't in any official transcripts. He knew the official last message was Captain Ernest McSorley's calm assurance that they were managing despite damage. But this was different. Haunting. Personal. Determined to investigate further, Sam arranged to visit Whitefish Bay and the surrounding areas. He stayed in an old weather-beaten lodge owned by a retired Coast Guard officer named Bill Henley, who remembered the storm well. "It wasn't just the wind that night," Bill said, sitting by a creaky fireplace. "It was the lake itself. Howled. My dog wouldn't stop barking toward the shoreline all night. Some of the boys said they heard voices out on the water, but none of us talked about it after the wreck. Too many nightmares." Sam recorded every word, adding it to his growing collection of first-hand accounts. But something else was beginning to weigh on him. Dreams. At first they were flashes. A dark sky lightning over roiling waves, a massive black ship listing to one side, then plunging downward with a bone-chilling groan. He would wake up breathless, the sound of metallic creaking still in his ears. After the fourth night of those dreams, he awoke to find his digital recorder had turned itself on during the night. Confused, he played it back. At first there was nothing but ambient static, but then he heard something. Voice. Will. Raspy. "We never made it to the light. Tell them we're still here." Then silence. Sam felt the blood drain from his face. He hadn't touched the recorder since he arrived in Whitefish Bay. There was no explanation for how it activated, or why it captured a voice. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, he hired a charter boat from a local fisherman named Dave Pritchard to take him out onto Lake Superior. They aimed for the last reported location of the Edmund Fitzgerald, some 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point. "You sure you want to go out there?" Dave asked, eyeing the thickening clouds. "Weather turns fast. And folks say that spot ain't quiet, if you know what I mean." Sam nodded, clutching his notebook and digital recorder like a talisman. They set out just after dawn. The lake was deceptively calm, its steel-gray surface reflecting the overcast sky. As they neared the coordinates, Sam felt the air grow colder. The temperature on the boat's monitor dropped several degrees, despite no change in the forecast. The wind picked up, and a dense fog rolled in fast, swallowing the horizon. Suddenly, the boat engine sputtered. Dave cursed under his breath, trying to restart it. It's brand new. No reason it should die like that. While Dave struggled with the engine, Sam stood at the edge of the boat, staring into the fog. He turned on his recorder and held it out. "Is anyone here?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. A long silence followed. Then a distant clanging sound echoed across the water, like chains against steel. Sam whipped around. "Did you hear that?" Dave didn't answer. He was staring behind Sam, wide-eyed. "You're not gonna believe this." Sam turned. Out of the fog, a massive shadow was forming. The silhouette of a freighter, old, rusted, towering above them. There was no sound of engines, no wake. Just an impossible black hull slowly gliding through the mist. The name on the side, barely legible through the rust and rot, read Edmund Fitzgerald. Sam stumbled backward, his recorder still running. He could hear creaking metal, the shriek of stressed beams and faint voices, chanting or calling he couldn't tell. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the ship faded back into the fog. The lake fell still again. Dave restarted the engine without trouble this time, and neither of them spoke until they reached shore. That night, Sam played back the recording. Once again a voice spoke, low and sorrowful. "We never reached the shore. We ride the storm forever." He was done with coincidence. He contacted a team of underwater archaeologists and arranged to dive with them near the wreck site. It was risky. The Fitzgerald rested under 500 feet of icy water, but Sam was granted permission to descend with a remote-operated submersible while monitoring from above. The feed from the submersible showed the skeletal remains of the ship. It had broken in two, just as reports described. The bow still looked relatively intact, but the stern was a twisted ruin. As the drone moved through the wreckage, Sam noticed something odd. In one of the crew quarters, a cabin door swung slightly open. Inside, the camera caught something reflective. Mirror. The drone paused in front of it. Sam leaned in. The mirror was cracked, water-stained, but intact enough to reflect. In its surface, the drone camera showed what looked like a figure. A man in a sailor's uniform, standing behind the drone. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. The crew monitoring the feed gasped. Then the image distorted. The screen went black. The drone cut out entirely. They never recovered the drone. The cables had been cleanly severed, with no explanation. Sam returned home shaken but resolved. He completed his book, including the full story of his encounters and recordings. He debated whether to include the supernatural elements, fearing ridicule, but ultimately decided the truth was worth the risk. He titled the book The Ghost Ship of the Great Lakes. It became a bestseller, drawing curiosity from skeptics and believers alike. But Sam knew it wasn't over. Even now, years later, he receives emails and letters from boaters who claim to have seen the Edmund Fitzgerald on foggy nights, always silent, always gliding, as if searching for safe harbor that never arrives. And sometimes, just before the first snowfall, Sam's recorder turns on by itself. A voice whispers from the static. "We never reached the shore. Lake Superior gives up her dead," they say. But not all of them. Not the ones still sailing beneath the fog. Not the crew of the ghost ship. Not the Edmund Fitzgerald.